All right, guys, we're back here, and we are with our guest today. That is Dean Caputo. We're here on location at the Dean Caputo Powerhouse in Streetsboro, Ohio. He was kind enough to let us film here today, so that's awesome. Place has only been open for a couple weeks, but it's already doing fantastic, and it's just a phenomenal gym. I'm sure you saw some of the little clips we had at the very front end of the episode. So we want to talk with Dean here and just kind of get his background. He's so knowledgeable. He's been around the industry for a minute. Uh, and so we're going to talk. Dean, so tell us about your background. I mean, go as far back as you want to go.
Well, I started kind of like I was a motorhead. I was kind of like not even into the sport whatsoever, and was just into cars. And the next thing you know, I was working landscaping, and then something came over me. I quit my job, went home, sold my car, didn't want to do that anymore, and I just went and bought weights. I don't even know why. I just did it and put them in my mom and dad's garage. Built this little area, made the atmosphere. You know, I put pictures of Arnold and Lou and, you know, all the guys back then, Franco Colombo up on the walls. And I don't even know why. I was 5'11", 140 pounds. I was super skinny. And I remember in 1973, I was 10 years old watching Wild World of Sports. I don't know if you guys remember that. Mm-hmm. And the Mr. Olympia was on, and I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I remember saying to my dad, that's the grossest thing I've ever seen in my life. I never, ever want to look like that. And here I am, you know, a few years later, in my garage doing this weightlifting stuff. I don't even know where it came from. And my mom and dad were like totally like, what the heck's going on? So when I made this little area in my garage, I had about 8 to 10 of my friends coming over, you know, start training and stuff, and we're kind of working on. This is my junior year in high school. And next thing you know, my body responded, and then next thing you know, they wanted me to play football. I wasn't really into sports, but I said, okay, peer pressure got me in. Started playing, I was a center, started playing, and I played the whole year. But then what always kept me in my mind was these practices and these games are just like messing up my training. You know, I couldn't train. And so my passion was about that. And then I always looked at like, man, you know, the quarterback, the running backs are getting all the headlines and stuff, and what can I do individually? And I didn't want to wrestle or nothing. So I ended up just kind of looking through the magazines and seeing, you know, what I was kind of putting up on my walls, and I thought, man, maybe I give this a try. And then when we graduated, everybody's thinking, what are we going to do? And I had a bunch of guys coming to my house, so I thought maybe I'll open a gym, you know, and here. My good friend Mark Skinesny, his brother had a dry cleaners in the Streetsboro Plaza, and the whole back of the cleaners was an empty warehouse. So I thought, man, what if I asked him if I could rent that out? And I remember going to him and asking how much the rent would be. It was $65 a month. And I was panicking. 65, oh my goodness, I don't know if I could make it. Well, anyways, we ended up going there. I called it Bodybuilders Unlimited. And next thing you know, I was charging like $15 a month. I had about 35 people within the first month, and I was paying the bills and doing what I loved, and next thing you know, it just started growing from there.
So the gym ownership came before your competitive career?
Yes, I was, as soon as I graduated high school, I was 18 years old when I did that.
That's cool. And how long did you have that gym in that iteration? I know obviously it became Powerhouse at a certain point.
Yeah, what happened was then I thought, I'm going to try this competing thing, and I only did it because maybe it would help promote the gym. You know, I thought, hey, if I compete, I do good, I'll get in the papers, get the gym some publicity. So that's why I started the competing part of it. And then I ended up going into Teenage Ohio. I won the Teenage Ohio North District in '83 and got publicity through the newspapers, because newspapers were big back then. So if you got in there, and then the membership started growing, so I thought, man, this is really starting to blossom into something. So I kept competing. Then when I was I won the Mr. Ohio in 1984, and then that's when I got noticed by Powerhouse, Norm and Will Davish. And after that is when I remember guest posing up in Michigan, and I was just in the Niagara Falls Grand Prix, and Norm Davish looked at me and he said, hey Dean, there's this blonde bodybuilder in Ohio that has a gym, and I want to see do you know him? That I want to see if he'll turn it over to a Powerhouse. And I said, Norm, that's me. So that's when he goes, oh my God, you know. So that's when it all came together. And actually, me and Will Davish met on stage, and that, you know, from that day forward, we're great friends.
Oh, that's cool. And then you obviously, at a certain point, you were kind of like one of the biggest faces in the supplement world. So obviously now magazines are, I don't want to say they're not as important as they once were, but I mean, that's just really the truth. You were in every magazine I mean, I remember when I was a kid seeing your face before I even knew who you were. I remember seeing you in every magazine, on every ad. So tell us a little bit about how that worked out.
Well, again, I'm always thinking business. What can publicity is what really makes your money and gets you moving forward ahead. And I started looking at like, okay, do I go after the titles or do I go after the publicity? And my thing, I started seeing like, okay, you got the titles, but really nothing's happening. But when you get the publicity, next thing you know, promoters want you, companies want you for endorsements, because the more you're seen, the more people want you. So that's when I really started really trying to get in the magazines and stuff. But then the big break came when GNC, a good friend of mine, Dave Hawk, was one of the models for GNC. His contract was up, and he recommended me to go down. I went down to Pittsburgh, met with GNC, and then I was also, if we go back a few years, I was also kind of making my own proteins, because the Weider protein was so bad and so disgusting. It just tasted horrible. And I remember we used to have a banana pepper right after we drink it, and eat the pepper to kill the taste. It was so bad. And like the blender, I remember the old time blenders, it'd be bogging down, it could barely blend it. So what I did was I'd take the Weider protein, put it in a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, dump cocoa powder and different flavorings in it, put a lid on it, and I'd roll it back and forth in my garage to mix it up. And then I was using that, and then next thing you know, everybody was like, come on, I want some. So I started selling it in my gym in baggies, and so then when I was talking with GNC, they heard about what I was doing, so I helped them actually formulate Pro Performance for them. And that's when I was the endorser on that, and that really launched my career into the mainstream media.
Cool, very cool. I have a question. If we go back a couple years to when you first started working out, for some of our viewers out there who may be just getting started working out, what were some of the fundamental, foundational movements that you, in your garage, when you went back in that story, what were things that you were doing back then that helped kind of build your foundation that eventually took you to more of like a bodybuilding split?
I always was around powerlifting and the bodybuilding, and I always did both. So I always liked the power part of it to keep the excitement going on, getting psyched up, but then I like the bodybuilding movement for the pump. Mm-hmm. And so I always did both. So I always did the basics, your bench, for legs was squats, for back was bent over rows, so heavy movements, but then I'd also combine that with bodybuilding movements and cable and dumbbell stuff.
Did you ever get into any powerlifting meets in the early parts of your training?
No, I never competed, but I never really maxed out because I was afraid of tearing a muscle or something that would hurt my career. Mm-hmm. But I was always going, for a few years straight, I was going to, I was benching 535 for triples in my workouts and stuff. And this is back in the late 80s,
Awesome.
And I remember being up in Detroit, and Ron Love and myself were, he's another IFBB pro, and we were up there and we were curling, and we ended up having a little competition going on, and we ended up curling 315 for 3. So it was pretty awesome. I mean, we'd go heavy, but, never competed in it.
Sure. And then let's talk nutrition a little bit too. What were some of the, nutrition's always, you have keto, you have, intermittent fasting, you have counting your macros. What are things that you found successful early, and then how did that evolve over time?
If you look at, and I'm sure Craig would see, if you look through all the years from the early 80s to now, diets changed so many times, and when I first started competing in the early 80s, they were going for the kind of what Mr. Olympia looked like, and at that time it was Frank Zane, so they went for that really lean, thinner look, so everybody was on low-carb diets back then, and we were eating a lot of red meat and eggs and just salads, and that's it.
Cool. And
I remember in the Mr. Ohio, I went from 247 down to 197 in 6 weeks, and it was like I was on 36 grams of carbs, a day, and that was strictly from a glass of orange juice. Then I met John Perillo, and he kind of got my diet turned around and said, hey, you need more moderation. So that's when you start adding a little bit of carbs, protein, and then some vegetables in. So it went through its phases, you know what I mean?
Did you feel the best on one versus the other? Like sometimes with like like I personally feel really, really good on like a ketogenic, more high fat diet. I don't feel as well with carbs, and I understand there's certain times where carbs might help accelerate, growth or whatnot. So what are things that you felt the best on training, and then the results that you saw from there?
Yeah, for me, I need carbs. I need carbs. When I'm on low carbs, I don't feel right. I don't look good. My muscles aren't as full.
Sure.
So when I was on that, the beef and the eggs and the salad, I was horrible. I had no energy. I felt horrible. And then when I changed, I started adding carbs in. That's when I felt great. I had energy, my muscles, I can get a pump. I need carbs.
Sure.
So there's two types of people. There's like yourself, and then there's people that can have carbs. The more carbs I eat, the better I look.
One more question off that. Do you feel like if you made a slow, let's say 1 month, and you went the red meat, the eggs, so more of something that's, moderate protein, high fat, would that help create a better sensitivity to the carbs when you went back to the carb diet later on? Do you ever see anything pattern-wise there?
Right after I got off that diet, I ended up in the hospital because I gained so much water,
Going back to the carbs?
the carbs
Okay.
and the salt and everything, mainly the salt. But so when I keep my diet with the carbs in there, I don't hold much water at all.
Sure.
So you had mentioned about training specifically so you did not get hurt. Did you have any major injuries throughout your career?
I was very, very, very lucky. I mean, I was just, even now I'll see all the old timers and everybody's sitting around talking about their knee replacements, their shoulder replacements, their hip replacements, and they're like, well, Dean, what do you have? And I said, nothing. And they're like, that's why they said I trained like a sissy. So that's why I'm okay today. But no, I've always trained smart. I train slow, very, very, restricted movements. If I felt a burn, I'd stop the lift. I wouldn't continue on like some people do, and just to have that ego and get that weight up. I was very, very smart in how I lifted. And then if I did have some rotator cuff injuries, but I would train around it. I never had to have surgeries.
So what are some of the other things that you did, to keep yourself healthy? Obviously not in the world of supplements, but if you want to talk on like preventative supplements too, you can talk about that, not just the bodybuilding end. But exercise, massage, chiropractic. What all did you do to kind of stay healthy?
I've always, was always with a chiropractor. Actually, you worked on me. Massage is huge. I still to this day get it every 3 weeks. And that kept me, whenever I missed my massage or missed my chiropractic visits, that's when all of a sudden I would start feeling, the twinges in the neck and my lower back and stuff like that. And right now I do have some back issues, but it's just like normal. It's nothing bad. But as long as I keep going, getting adjusted, get the massages every 3 weeks, that keeps me, that's preventative from any kind of problems.
And obviously your history with the supplement world, were there any specific supplements that you liked for health, pain relief, or maintaining the joints?
Yeah, I always, even when I was younger, took, the omega-3s. And, if I wanted to make sure that if I ever have blood pressure issues or whatever, that, the omega-3s are going to help the elasticity of my veins and my arteries. So I always did that all the time. So I always do that. And I do the red yeast rice and the niacin, non-flushing niacin, and the CoQ10 for the cholesterol, keep that low. So the supplements I take now. Back in the day, I had the protein and the creatine and everything, and I still take creatine because creatine is really good for mental clarity. It's a lot of good mind stuff. I mean, if you go online, you can see all the studies for that. So it's not just for power and strength; it's also for mental clarity and stuff. So I take that, but yeah, my whole supplement regimen is totally different than it was.
So you've been obviously successful in pretty much everything you've ever done, whether it be promoting the contest or the gym or competing. One of the big things we like to talk about is mindset. And what were some of the things that you would do, whether it be specific routines pre-competition or pre-workout? What do you do to kind of get your head in that right space of saying, I'm going to be a champion today?
The mind is so strong, and what I always did is, number one, anything negative in my life I got rid of, and I still do that today. If somebody's negative around me, I don't care if you're my brother, I'm not going to be around you. So negativity is the first thing I get rid of. And secondly is, when I'm doing something, I focus on it 150%, and I don't think of anything else until I'm done with that certain thing I'm focused on. And so whether it be, that's why I had to step away from when I owned my gym from 1982 to 2000 because I was then focused on the supplement industry. I had to make the choice, like, which one am I going to focus more on? And I wanted to focus more on the supplement industry, so that's why I went after that. So I try not to be a jack of all trades. I want to be a master of one at a time. And I feel that that's led me to not be so stressed out about a million different things going on in my life.
Tell us about the show. You've promoted the North Coast now. This is going into its 7th year. I've been a sponsor through Kinetic Cream and through my chiropractic office a couple times. Toyed with competing in it, but haven't quite made that jump to his stage this time yet. So tell us about that show and how I think you had promoted a show before. Correct?
Yeah, the Powerhouse Classic.
Okay, so tell us how the transition went, and I know it's at Kent State. So tell us about the show.
Well, I started out where I was doing the competing, and then I ended up, I was coming to the end of my career, and I thought, you know what, why don't I start getting and doing a little, because I was the NPC chairman at the time and stuff. I said, why don't I start promoting a show myself? And that's when Greg Krause and myself got together. We said, let's create a show that we would want for ourselves. And so what we did was we had the Powerhouse Classic back in the day, and we would bring in, like at that time, we wanted to see a lot of pros. So a lot of these guys were my friends because I was still competing with them, so they give me good prices. So I was able to get a little bit more than just one guest poser at the show. And then I told Greg, I said, the biggest thing is I know these guys are all my friends, and some of them are kind of unreliable, so we better get more than one. So we ended up getting 2, ended up getting 3. Then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, we might need more because those 2 aren't real reliable. Sure. So we ended up getting like 5 people. Then so it's like we were known for almost being a little pro show because we're having all these guys guest posing, and it was really a great show, and it really built up to be pretty big. And then when Monica, my wife, and I, when we ended up getting married and stuff, we kind of stepped away from the promoting, raised our family. And that's when we came back to the promoting, and the North Coast became available through the NPC, and it's always been a big name. All the way back into the early 80s, the North Coast was around, so that's when we decided, let's jump back into the promoting arena, and that's when we got with the North Coast, got hooked back up with our Greg and Michelle Krause, and it's been a phenomenal ride so far. We started in Twinsburg, then we moved it to Kent State, now we have the Mac Center, and it's just, in today's day and age with the bikini and all the different divisions, it's way bigger than it was back in the 80s with just bodybuilding.
And for those of you who haven't been there, the venue is phenomenal. It's where Kent State plays their basketball games. It's just absolutely huge. It's always a good show, tons of vendors, tons of spectators. You can see absolutely everything, and if you're interested in competing in it, this year, what are the dates this year?
It's May 23rd. It's always Memorial Day weekend, so it's May 23rd, and we're also having a push-pull event for the powerlifting part of it. We're not having a squat, but it's a push-pull event. So
nice. And then, of course, the gym. Now the gym's been open for 3 weeks?
Yeah, tomorrow will be 3 weeks.
Okay. So tell us about how you decided to come back to having a gym and how fun it's been now. And like you said, you mentioned your wife. It's kind of like a family affair for you. You get your wife, your daughter, all you guys are always here.
Yeah, it's a total family affair, and it's at our point now where the kids are grown. They're growing up now. They're in their teen years, and we thought, why don't we start dabbling? We've always gotten emails and texts and everything like, could you bring back the Powerhouse of Streetsboro? And for years and years, I was, with the supplement industry, I'm like, I'm too busy right now. And about the last 2 years of the supplements, being in the supplement industry, it was really getting to me. I'm 56 years old now, and it's like, it's getting a little too corporate. And it's not as fun as it was back in the day. And so then I started kicking around more of the gym business. And then in March, when me and my wife Monica were driving around putting posters in different gyms, every time I go into a gym, she goes, you light up. She goes, talking to the gym owners, I'm giving them ideas to do this, do that. And then she says, why don't we just do it ourselves? So that's when we thought. So in March, I thought, let's give it a shot. So we started looking around locations, and everything just started falling into place. And I've always done my business decisions on a gut feeling, and I always say, you know what, if there's no hurdles in front of me, then it's meant to be. But if there's constantly hurdles, then I shy away from it. Where this one was just like one thing after another was happening, and I researched the gym business, and I called up Will Davish up at Powerhouse in Detroit, and I said, Will, he goes, oh my God, blast from the past. It's been 21 years, Wow. And And I said, hey, could you make a living at the gym business? He goes, better than ever now. You know, he got all excited. So, man, we got right on it, started looking at demographics and everything, and all the numbers just looked right. And that's when we decided, let's go for it. And that's when I pretty much left the supplement industry, and I'm back into this 100%.
Awesome. And it's a 16,000 square feet?
Yeah, it's over 16,000 square feet. And when I was designing the gym, I said, we got to design it in a different way than all the other gyms. I said, the biggest problem is you either have your fitness type of gym or your hardcore dirty gym. You don't have nothing in between, and you can't mix these crowds. So I said, let's get 3 separate units, 3 separate gyms, create 3 separate environments. And I even asked the city, I said, what's the smallest opening I can do in between each unit? And they said 8 foot. So I did that just to so we can keep the sound and everything in each unit separate. And that's why we have the fitness zone. It's got all the selectorized equipment, the cardio equipment. So a fitness person can come in there and just be comfortable in their environment. They could do their whole body in there. Or you can go into, it's called the Extreme Zone, and it's a replica of my old 1982 Powerhouse. So we have louder music, hardcore equipment and stuff, all hammer strength. And then we have the Sport Zone. So athletes can go in there, your average person can go in there and do different types of sports, functional training.
And of course, we're in a posing room right now, which is pretty cool. I mean, we've got you can't see it, but we'll get some pictures. The lighting in here is phenomenal. We've got mirrors on the other side of us. It's just perfect for somebody who is looking to compete. He's even got the lines on the floor with the right placing for when you're up there doing your quarter turns and whatnot. So it's really cool. It really has something for everybody.
Dean, where can people find more out about you and the gym, social media, websites, before we get too far?
Yeah, it's Dean Caputo at Powerhouse Gym.
Okay.
And then it was Dean Caputo's Powerhouse Gym is on social media. And then it's powerhousegym.com/Streetsboro is our website. You can go on there. We have a real awesome promotional video. You can see the whole gym. And you can get a free pass and come in for a free day's pass and stuff. So all the social media covers everything we have. And the Northcoast Championships too.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I think that's probably all we got. I know our microphones dropped down, so I apologize about the microphone in my face. It's too bad it didn't block more of my actual face. Saved everybody the trouble. But yeah, man, this is awesome. This location's phenomenal. We're gonna do the rest of our episode here, but I think we might come back here and do a couple more episodes because this is just a great setup, and we appreciate you having us.
No, thank you for coming, and you guys are welcome here every day.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right, we'll be right back, guys.